The quantum computer threat appears every single year whenever the crypto market gets shaky. For most crypto investors, this probably sounds like boring background noise by now. I used to think the same way. I dismissed it as a distant theoretical hypothesis or just market FUD, mainly because there were too many physical hurdles to overcome. However, today's video does not deal with vague hypotheses. This warning comes from none other than the creator of Ethereum, Vitalik Buterin, and he has presented concrete data to back it up. Vitalik recently cited data from prediction markets to point out a very interesting figure. The median year that experts expect our current encryption to be broken is 2040. In other words, on average, we have about 15 years left. Seeing this number alone, you might feel relieved and think, we still have a long way to go. But what Vitalik really focused on is the tail risk, or the exceptional probability. He emphasized that, quote, although the median is 2040, there is a whopping 20% chance that the encryption system could be broken before 2030. Does a 20% probability seem low to you? Let me ask you this. If there was a 20% chance that the airplane you were about to board would crash, would you still get on it? Probably not a single person would. In a financial system where the world's assets are at stake, a catastrophic risk of 20% is a figure that can never be ignored. In fact, it is a figure that should set off emergency alarms. This is exactly why Vitalik Buterin set the deadline, saying, we must complete our preparations by 2028. This is not a prophecy that we will definitely be ruined in 2028. It is a piece of strictly realistic risk management advice. It means that to prevent the worst-case scenario that has a 20% chance of happening in 2030, we must fasten our seatbelts at least 2 years prior, by 2028. First, the problem is that this 20% probability is gradually rising. In late 2025, Google crossed a major technological barrier with its new quantum chip called Willow. The key here is not the number of qubits. It is the error correction technology. In the past, increasing qubits created too many errors, making them useless. However, Google experimentally proved with this chip that as you increase qubits, the errors decrease exponentially. What does this mean? It means the nature of quantum computer development has changed. It is no longer an unsolvable physics mystery, but has shifted into an engineering problem that can be solved if capital and time are invested. Second, the authoritative voices in academia have changed. Even Professor Scott Aaronson, a representative quantum skeptic, recently changed his stance. He evaluated that the possibility of a computer emerging around the 2028 US presidential election that threatens current encryption systems has entered the realm of live possibility. This is a powerful warning that the median estimate of 2040 could be drastically pulled forward, depending on the speed of technological development. So, if that 20% probability becomes reality, what happens to Bitcoin? We need a fact check. The statement that all Bitcoin will be stolen is half right and half wrong. First, the most dangerous ones are the early addresses where the public key is exposed on the ledger, known as P2PK addresses. This accounts for about 25% of all Bitcoin, including Satoshi Nakamoto's wallet. Once a quantum computer starts running, this 25% volume effectively becomes a safe with the lock broken. Second, the modern addresses you likely use are locked once more with a hash function, making them relatively safe. This is because, while Shor's algorithm can break signatures, it cannot easily break hash functions. However, it is too early to relax. Even Bitcoin sitting in a safe wallet becomes exposed to danger the moment you press the send button. This is because your public key is revealed to the network when you broadcast signature data for the transfer. An attacker can attempt a transit attack, where they reverse calculate your private key and steal your coins during the approximately 10 minutes your transaction stays in the mempool before the block is confirmed. In other words, a dilemma arises. You might be safe if you stay still, but if you try to cash out or move your funds, you could be attacked. Therefore, Vitalik Buterin proposes completely changing Ethereum's constitution by 2028, before 2030 arrives. Ethereum has activated a roadmap to replace its internal signature method with Stark-based quantum resistance, while keeping wallet addresses the same using account abstraction. Since Ethereum is based on smart contracts, software upgrades are possible with relative flexibility. On the other hand, Bitcoin changes slowly, but that doesn't mean there is no way. Developers are proposing a protocol called Commit, Delay, Reveal. The principle is simple. You declare, I am moving, but you wait for a certain period without showing your actual key, the public key. Then, once the network acknowledges, you are safe, you move your assets to a new quantum-resistant address. Fortunately, this can be implemented without a hard fork that would split Bitcoin in two. Technical defenses are in place. The real problem is politics and consensus among people. What should we do with the volume of coins, like the 1 million Bitcoin owned by Satoshi Nakamoto I mentioned earlier, where the owner does not appear, making an upgrade impossible? Once a quantum computer emerges, anyone can take this. To prevent market collapse, the community might have to agree and decide, let's forcibly burn the old coins so they can't be used. However, this breaks Bitcoin's sacred principle that code is law. Mistrust could arise, leading people to think, if someone else's money can be forcibly erased, isn't my money unsafe too? Ultimately, around 2028, the division and chaos within the community over this issue could be a bigger risk than the technical hacking itself. We can't just sit around and worry. Here are 3 concrete survival rules you should execute right now. First, swap your old safe for a new one. In other words, key rotation. Many long-term Bitcoin investors think doing nothing is best, but not in the face of the quantum threat. If your Bitcoin is sleeping in an old address created in the early 2010s, starting with the number 1 for more than 5 years, you should consider moving it to a latest SegWit or Taproot address starting with BC1, which has stronger security. The most important thing is no address reuse. Any address that has sent funds even once likely has its public key exposed. The habit of generating a new address every time you receive funds is the most basic defense tactic to protect your money from quantum computers. Second, watch the canary in the market. Individuals cannot look up research papers every day. Instead, you just need to watch for 2 signals. One is when the National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST, confirms and announces the post-quantum cryptography standard. The other is when giant exchanges like Binance or Coinbase upgrade their cold wallets. If exchanges start moving trillions of dollars worth of customer assets, that is the real deadline. We just need to move exactly half a beat faster than they do. Third, you need diversified investment in encryption methods as well. Right now, we are putting all our eggs in one basket called elliptic curve cryptography for both Bitcoin and Ethereum. However, as we saw, Ethereum is rushing to switch to hash-based Starks, while Bitcoin is relatively conservative. Properly mixing 2 assets with different technical approaches, or including even a small amount of quantum-resistant altcoins in your portfolio. Apart from returns, this is the real hedging strategy to increase your asset's survival probability. Let's conclude. The quantum threat of 2028 will not be a disaster for us, but a massive filter. Gambling coins with weak security will get caught in the quantum computer sieve and turn into scraps of paper. Only the real coins that withstand this crisis and successfully upgrade will be recognized as vessels that safely hold the world's wealth. By then, the status of Bitcoin and Ethereum will be on a different level than today. Those who have a definite strategy of, even if it gets breached, my money is safe, rather than a vague optimism of, surely it won't be hacked, will be the protagonists of the next bull market. I hope today's video becomes a shield protecting your assets. Please subscribe, like, and turn on notifications. Thank you.